Welcome in to Varsity Vibe. I'm your host, Alyssa Orange. And as always, thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited about today's guest because he has been covering baseball in the state of Arkansas for over a decade and high school, college baseball, knows it like the back of his hand. And you can find his stuff on so many different platforms as baseball season starts to unfold and really get going, kicking it in to high gear. Kevin Bohannon joining me to really break down the classifications. Who could we see in Hot Springs for the state finals, and what players we need to keep an eye on as well around the natural state? So enjoy my conversation talking baseball with Kevin Bohannon. Excited to have Kevin Bohannon joining us on Varsity Vibe. And Kevin, you've been covering baseball around the state on the high school level for a really, really long time. And I don't think that there's anybody else more dialed in the know with high school baseball and the players and the teams around the state than you. So really excited to hear just your thoughts on this 2026 season that's already got going. And I think it's kind of wild. First, I want to get your opinion on this. With teams starting off seasons with conference play right off the bat. There is no getting into it. There is no slowly kind of working out the kinks. You're jumping right in it. What is your thought with that?
Yeah, and this is something, it's a 10-week season. So
Mhm.
just like the regular season in football, it's 10 weeks. But in baseball, you're playing 2 or 3 games a week. And especially when you have conferences like the 6A West that, have 9 teams,
Mhm.
there's going to be just one week where you have an off week, and then there's going to be one week where you have non-conference play, and that's it. And that includes spring break, Alyssa.
Mhm.
So, talking to Dustin Helmkamp about this, they wanted to start the season earlier. So if you go back to the late '90s, early 2000s, I graduated in '99. We started February 14th, February 16th. That's when our first game of the year was. Now, we went out of state for that tournament, but we were allowed to do that. At that time, that you were allowed to play 22 games plus 3 tournaments, and that showcase tournament in Shreveport was counted as a tournament at the time. So I think if you have a conference with 9 teams, there should be some kind of thing where they get an extra week, somewhere. You get these
Yeah.
guys because spring break, a lot of these teams like Fayetteville has gone to Texas in the past. A lot of teams go to South Carolina, Florida. They go to warm weather states so they could, get some competition, outside the state of Arkansas to really see how good they are going into postseason play. So I wish the season was a little bit longer, but the weather really takes precedent. And then once you get to the end of the season, the weekend of champions is always a big deal because you have graduation going on. So there's really not much room
Yeah.
to make any more games.
Yeah, for softball, baseball, and even soccer, just kind of really locked into a certain calendar, and there really isn't much wiggle room. But it's okay because the season is here, and then everyone's excited, anyways. As we look around the state, before we kind of break down the classifications, who are some players that you're really keeping an eye on that people need to know about?
Yeah, the class of 2026 is going to be one of those that you, if you look at the overall rankings, it's not going to be kind of as high. You got some guys that are on the border that are going to be really good. You get first of all, you think of what Valley View has done up in the northeast part of the state. They've
Mhm.
got Keaton Mathis, they've got Madden Tatum, Mad Tat as they call him. But then you go to Northwest Arkansas, you got Jake Taylor, you got Ty Burnham at Rogers. Those two, they're going to Little Rock and Arkansas
Mhm.
right there. So the University of Arkansas has only got three guys in this class, really. Max Holland at Conway, you got Burnham at Rogers, then you got Tristan Newberry at Russellville. Conway's loaded. They got Sean Cover in addition to Max Holland. Both those guys are going to catch at the D1 level, at the high
Mhm.
D1 level. Cover's committed to Southern Miss,
Mhm.
and I think he could have gone just about anywhere with the bat. He's one of the best pure hitters in the state. Nate Wanamaker for Conway. So there, throughout the state, if you look as a whole, there is talent spread throughout everywhere in every corner, and that's one of the great things. This past year, going back to November of 25, on signing day, there were over 100 players that signed to play college baseball at the next level, and that's great to see
Awesome.
because of just the JUCO ranks. Southern Arkansas, South Ark Community College, UA Rich Mountain have just when you got 9 or 10 JUCOs that it's going to make it better, and it makes Division II better around the
Mhm.
state. And you see what Mike Silva at Arkansas State's done. You see what Nick Harlan at UCA, Chris Curry at Little Rock. It just makes everything better around the state because it lifts up from the bottom up, really. So high school baseball has gotten better, and the college coaches around the state have really taken notice about that.
Yeah, since you talked about it, I want to pick your brain about it a little bit because you played in it, right, as a player, and you've seen it grow. How fun has it been to see the game grow the way that it has in the state?
So, and there were really kind of three different time periods, going back to when I played. So over the past 26, 27 years that, and you always want to compare different eras and different generations.
Mhm.
And when I was covering Slade Caldwell and, I really got in the trenches with him and his process of, going through the process of getting drafted, being committed to Ole Miss and everything, and that team was loaded. They had Lance Davis, who was a Razorback commit at the time. He's at TCU now. They just had so many guys on that roster that were going to play at the next level. Eli Crecilius was committed to Arkansas. He went to Crowder. Then you had a catcher. Then Keaton Matthews was a baby on that team. He was a sophomore. Owen Roach was a sophomore. Noah Ragsdale, Drew Gartman. That team, from top to bottom was one of the best out of the last 20 years. So you want to kind of look and see, okay, how would that team compare against some of the teams of the late 90s, like the Mills team I played on, that 13 out of the 15 players went on to play college baseball. A few got drafted. And you had a coach that is now the athletic director at P. Ridge and Kevin Downing. So comparing generations, the game has changed so much because of technology. So players have, we weren't playing year round. I was playing football. I mean, we had guys that played football and then some that played basketball and would come out. But you have guys that can specialize in sports and they have access to baseball all year round. Yeah. We didn't have the Martin Luther King Invitational in Arizona or Florida as part of perfect game. There was no perfect game. We had AAU during the summer and we were playing for Coleman Dairy or some of the, big AAU, big Legion teams around the state. That's all we did. So we would play our 30, 35 games in high school and then go play, 2 months during the summer, playing down in El Dorado for an oil man, Mike Meeks. You didn't really get to travel all these places like kids do. When I was coaching showcase ball for the prospects and, the 2020 group we had, the 2020 group was the best group top to bottom. Yeah. This 2028 group has the potential to be that good. You go back to the 20 class, it had Tink Hintz. He was a compensatory pick with the Cardinals. Caden Wallace, he's in the Nationals organization. Marcus Brown is with the Nationals. He was a 5th round draft pick. Clayton Gray is with the Colorado Rockies. He was from Cabot. So the access to baseball has gotten better. That's the number one thing. Yeah. These kids are putting in the work. They're putting in the time. And, some of the coaches like Mark Ballesteri at Benton are adapting to the changes in technology. And that's one of the things I talked with Mark about back in December at the, Coaches Association clinic is, I've got young assistants that can really get into the analytics of things. Yeah. But at the base and the foundation, it's still see ball, hit ball, score more than your opponent, catch the ball, throw the ball. It's like the old, saying on Bull Durham, you catch the ball, you throw the ball. It's an easy game, but there's so many moving parts around it now that you want to look at everything on paper and see, okay, can numbers tell the story of a game? Yeah. Well, they can tell part of it, but you still got to be on the field to do the most biggest part.
There's always that balance, and it continues to remain a conversation between the analytics and just the feeling of the game. There's such a big difference. There's such a big difference. Well, hey, let's jump into it. Let's kind of break down some of these classifications because I know we could talk baseball all day long if we wanted to. Yeah. So jumping into the 6A, Rogers won a year ago, and they got to play Fayetteville, but they seem like they've got a really good team back this year as well. What do you think about what's going on with the 6A around the state?
They, like we talked about, 6A West was thrown in the Central. They were thrown right into the fire last week. Yeah. Rogers plays, Bentonville to kick off the season. And they split. You talk about Bentonville and what they've done. They've been to the finals. They went 3 years in a row. They lost, but they were trying to get back last year, and it was Rogers and Fayetteville again. So the 6A Central has to they got to put their nose in there. They really haven't won anything since, Conway made it. back in 22. So who's going to be that team from the Central that can jump up and beat one of those teams from the West? Because it's been Harbor, it's been Rogers, it's been Bentonville, those and Fayetteville last year with Brissy and Landon Schaefer. The West has really kind of reigned supreme. So Bentonville split last week with Rogers. They won the second game. Cade Campbell, as a kid we didn't mention a while ago, that really burst onto the scene. Cade's one of the fastest players in the state. He's a true, legit 4.4 guy. I think he's ran like a 6.3, 60, but now he's gotten his arm velocity. He's got his arm strength up. His velocity on the mound's really good. He was 86 to 88 last week, but he plays shortstops and he hits out of the 3-hole for the Tigers. So Bentonville's going to be that sneaky good team this year. Harbor's going to be at the top. They were 2-0 last week. Rogers Heritage is down. Of course, they got a new coach since Brian Walker left. And Harbor got a move in with a very familiar last name of Baxendale that everybody will recognize. He transferred over from Greenland. So, I think the top of the 6A West may look a little different, but Fayetteville, Harbor, Bentonville, and Rogers, I think that's still your top 4. Keep an eye on Jaden Stinger from Northside. Look, Northside is not going to be as deep. They don't have McLean Moody this year, who's moved on to pro ball, but that young man could be the next big thing out in a Grizzly uniform. 6'2", 210 catcher. He could do a lot of big things behind the plate and at the plate. I think he's got a bright future. And then the 6A Central, Cabot has started out 3-0. They're 2-0 in conference play. Bryant, in the second year under Garrett Bach, I think will make a move. I think it's in their spots where they could possibly make a run at a state championship this year. They've got the depth on the mound especially. But I think the team that everybody's chasing is Conway. When you've got guys like Max Holland, who's healthy, best catcher in the state, bar none, the best hitter in the state, and Sean Cover, and they've got depth on the mound, Wanamaker on the mound, they've got Cicero on the mound. They just get so many arms, and they just keep coming at you wave after wave after wave. So they can actually play 3 games in a week, Alyssa, and they always take on the toughest competition. Leighton Hardin's team is going to play Valley View. They're going to play out-of-state teams. They played Houston High last week over in Memphis for that first weekend series, and they went 2-0 over there. So I think Conway's got a really good chance to not only make it to a state championship, but win a second one under Leighton Hardin.
That's exciting. All right, you talked about Valley View a couple of times, so let's shift to the 5A. They won a season ago, beating Marion. And so do they reload up there and try to make a run again?
Absolutely. I think at last count, they've got 11 players that have either signed or committed to play college baseball. And, the Northeast corridor, I'm on the radio a couple of times up there during the week and really gotten to know that area and everybody since, I started really getting into this 8 years ago. And at that time, Jonesboro was the top dog and Brooklyn, Valley View were kind of, 2A and 2B. But the players all really kind of go to Valley View now. Brooklyn's on the outskirts. They get their guys. They've got it. They'll be one of the top teams to beat in 4A. But Valley View, we mentioned them, Noah Ragsdale, Owen Roach, they're going to go play college ball. They've got Keaton Mathis, who's going to go to Arkansas State. I think that's a huge pickup for Mike Silva. Keaton's going to be one of those guys that can play catcher. He could play corner infield spot. But the bat really gets going. He could be a draft guy after 3 years in college. I really believe that. Owen Roach has got the experience. Of course, he played outfield his sophomore year next to Slade Caldwell. That was huge for him just to learn. And Josh Allison called Owen the Slade protector. He hit 350 his sophomore year, but he was there to help hit behind Slade in that 2-hole. So I think now it's his team, him and Noah's team. And I think they're going to be just good. But the team to watch out for, Greene County Tech. You talk about the 28 group. They've got a young man, Brooks Robinson, and they knew he was going to be that kind of guy, that kind of player. 6'3", about 195. He can be 91, 92, Alyssa, but he sits 87, 89 because he's a strike thrower. Okay. But the bat plays up. So if he's not on the mound, he's going to be at third base, hitting in the 3-hole, maybe 2-hole. Sid Palma is a one to watch for. He's 86, 88 as well. So they've got 4 arms that are 85, 86 plus. And if you can run that out there time after time, look, they've already beat.
That's hard to beat.
Yeah, it is. They beat Harding Academy 16-2. They beat Riverside 13-1. They beat Jonesboro, I think, 12-4. And they've done this without their top arm so far.
Wow.
Cannon Ring's their catcher. He's going to go to Little Rock. Derek Runyon, my best friend, my brother growing up, Andy Runyon, that's his kid. He's hitting doubles off the wall now. Last year they were just slap singles. So they really have the goods. They made the semifinals last year in a run that was just kind of surprising. It wasn't their time yet. Now they host the 5A state tournament.
Okay.
So they have a shot.
So watch out. That's what you're saying. Take notice right now. I love that. All right. Over in the 4A, and you kind of just mentioned them too, Harding Academy. They beat Brooklyn a year ago. What stands out to you with what you're seeing from the 4A?
Yeah, the biggest thing is that 4A6 conference, Alyssa. It's the 4A5 now, and they split it into North and South. So you've got Pulaski Academy, who Denny Tipton has moved over there, the Sylvan Hills coach that won 4 state championships as a Bear. He was a longtime athletic director. He took the head baseball job after Billy Adams was asked to step down. Then you got Robinson. Yeah. Robinson has been in the running 2 years ago, made the state finals, lost that game to Gosnell. And then last year made the semifinals, lost to Brooklyn. And then you got CAC, their second year. They've got a really good young class. Dustin Mosley's son is there. And J.D. Plumley's son is catching. So the head football coach, Morrilton under Mike Lee, they're going to be fundamentally sound. Then Harding Academy, all 5 of those teams are in the same conference. Yeah. It's a shame because somebody's going to be left out of the regionals.
That's crazy.
The way it's set up, the other side of the 4A5 South has Malvern, Bauxite, Fountain Lake, East End, and Mills. So the balance is heavy in that 4A5 North. And it's really a shame. But, Pocahontas, they're going to be tough up there with Brooklyn. Gosnell's had a rough start to the year at 1-3, but they've got some guys. Gravett, Gentry, Shiloh Christian, their second year under Alan Gum. Really love the way they swing it. They led the state in home runs last year. I think they got a shot to get back to it'll be Hot Springs this year. They get a shot to get back to championship land with the Saints.
Yeah. Moving now to 3A real fast. Ashdown a winner ago. What jumps out to you there? And maybe is there a team that looks like they could make a run?
I really think it's going to come out of the South again, whether it be Genoa Central. They were senior heavy last year, but they've always got a good program. They're always going to run through guys that compete at the highest level. And so, Ashdown they get a really tough schedule to start the season. They'll play teams from Texas, Louisiana. So you really can't look at what they're going to look like down the line until they really get in the conference play. But they do have Genoa Central in that same conference right there. If you look at the other part of that region, Region 8 or Conference 8 out of the South region, Rising's got Noah Matheson. They started off kind of slow this year, but they don't have much behind Matheson. But Chad Cope is one of the best baseball guys in the state. I think that they'll have a shot out of the South to make it to the state tournament. Looking in the Central region, Episcopal, Eddie Stevenson, never count those guys out. Now, Episcopal is a 2A school that plays 3A. Because of the competitive equity factor. And a couple of years ago, they made the semifinal run with Drew Grumbles, who's at Boston College now. Pitched for Johns Hopkins for 3 years. What a great story that was about Drew Grumbles. He got his first win last week against Florida International on the mound. But Episcopal had a couple of guys move in, 85, 86 on the mound, a couple of lefties, and Eddie knows how to coach those lefties up. So Harmony Grove, Haskell, Harmony Grove, Episcopal out of the Central region will be good. Boonville's always competitive out of the River Valley. And then Walnut Ridge, Harrisburg in the northeast part of the state. That's always a fun conference to watch. Rivercrest, depending on if they want to hold on to the ball. They kicked the ball around quite a bit last year, and it kind of bit them in the end. So they could be a team to struggle that will give people struggles towards the end of the season, I bet.
Okay, and so now we look at the last two now we look at the last two divisions in the 2A and the 1A. And I think what I learned last year, Kevin, especially on the softball side, man, those smaller schools have so much talent and so much passion, and it's really cool to see the talent on that level just shine in big moments. And it was really cool to learn about how storied those schools are when it comes to the bat and ball sport. And so when you look at those two divisions in the 2A and the 1A, what stands out?
Yeah, looking at 1A real quick, West Side Greers Ferry, they start off Brooks Hip. A couple years ago when I first got to lay eyes on this young man, really solid outfielder, really good bat to ball skills, and really loves the game, plays like a dirt bag, and that's one of those things that you love to watch out of that classification. They've already gotten off to a really good start. They got a 7-6 win over Nemo Vista. And I think Nemo is going to be one of those teams that can get back to make a semifinal run this year. They've been in state championship contention. But Westside's only loss right now is to Clinton. Clinton's got a really good ball club, but they beat North Fork. They beat Calico Rock. They're 2-0 in conference play. So that's going to set Westside up for a lot of success early on. Some of these teams are coming out of basketball, so you really don't have a good grasp on what they're going to do. But, looking, in the northeast part of the state, of course, you got Westside. We talked about that. Then you got, Hillcrest made a run last year. Armorel, they're always going to be in it. Scranton is 1-0 in the season. And then the central part of the state, we talked about Nemo Vista, St. Joe's. They made a run last year to the state championship game. Luke's got a lot of players back this year. I think he started 4 or 5 freshmen last year. And this is a team that, they only filled about 12 on the roster. Yeah. So they gut through it.
Not a lot of room for error over there.
There's not. They gut through it, and they get after it. And I've always, loved the Bulldog program and, what they've done. Luke's done a great job with those guys. And then Mount Ida in the southern part of the state. And you can never forget the Taylor Tigers. Brian Fowler just keeps rolling the machine that is called the Taylor Tigers right along. 13-3 over Hope. They beat North Webster out of Louisiana 11-10. They shut out the HGOC, Harmony Grove, Ouachita County, 10-0, 9-0 over Foreman. We'll learn a lot about them against Genoa Central tonight. That game, it will be watched very heavily in South Arkansas. Taylor and Genoa Central got a 1A team versus a 3A team. But, until somebody tells me otherwise, I still think the 1A title rolls through Taylor. So they still got some competition. That it'll be a really good season run for a few teams.
The sentiment is kind of the same on the softball side too at Taylor. That's just kind of what they do down there, which is really cool. Hey, if I were to ask you, and it can be through in any classification, which might be hard, sorry. But if there is a team that maybe it's like I'm really looking at this program to make some noise or, maybe, surprise some people or something. Is there just one team and program that you're really looking at?
And some of the people that watch this in Central Arkansas may call me a homer for this, but Sylvan Hills has Caleb Harrison, Zach James, good young coach. He took over the athletic director spot after Denny Tipton left to go to PA, and he took over for Denny when Denny stepped down as the head baseball coach. But in that Central Conference, the 5A Central, it's loaded because you got Greenbrier, who's going to be competitive and tough. You've got, Valonia with Brad Wallace. You've got Benton that we've talked about. They've got Sawyer Wilson and Marcus Bates, a ton of other guys that are Easton Stellings that are going to be real good. But I think if Sylvan Hills, and last year they had this problem, Jaden Sloan, who's the leadoff hitter and center fielder for UCA right now. So that just shows you the type of talent that goes through that program. I think if early on they're playing good defense and pitching well, I think they are a team that can not only make the state playoffs but win the conference. And I think at that point they could make some noise.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
That's good. So I want to, as the baseball season continues to unfold and you cover baseball, you talked about being on the radio. I know you talk about this all the time. And so where can people kind of keep up with baseball season with you and where you'll be?
Yeah. So, on Twitter, it's Cabo Baseball Guru. And that can't, I didn't name myself that, I promise. Randy Rainwater gave me that once he started getting me on the radio back in 2019, 2018. So on the Buzz, it's every Wednesday at 4:30. We do Around the Horn, which is a segment dedicated strictly to high school and college baseball. Now that the high school season has started, we'll have more high school content on there. I'm on 1:30 every Wednesday with Out of Bounds on the Buzz, 103.7 with Wes and Joe. And then Northeast Arkansas, the fans up there, I'll be on every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock with on the front row with Budrow, and every Thursday at 3:30 with Cade Carlton on the drive. So yeah, and the good thing about this, Alyssa, this year we are going to have a statewide media poll. So there hasn't been a statewide ranking system that has been, since we were let go at Scorebook Live. We had a statewide ranking system that we did year in, year out that I started in 2019. And thanks to Neil Denton up in the north central part of the state, we're going to have, it's going to be an AP media poll is what it is. So it'll be published on the Associated Press. We'll distribute it out everywhere that media touches. Varsity Vibe, obviously, will have that they can go through, and we'll be able to share that with everybody. So make sure you stay tuned for that. That's going to come out the first week after spring break that basketball season gets done with. So just the same media poll it's done with football and basketball, we're going to have it for baseball as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to keeping track throughout the season. And then, once playoffs and finals roll around, we'll see how good we are about talking about it early on.
That's right.
And seeing what actually happens at the end of the season.
Yeah, I've had a really good streak the last couple of years.
Oh.
1 year, 5 out of the 6 made the state finals that I had preseason number 1. Yeah. 4 of them won it. So we'll see.
And this is why you're the guy. And we appreciate you coming on, Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us. I tell you what, I could talk baseball all day long. I could talk softball all day long. And by the way, if you missed our softball preview breakdown with Kyle Sutherland, you can find that over on our platform, wherever you get your podcasts, or our YouTube channel as well. And so that gets you ready for softball. We're here ready for baseball. And man, it is my favorite time of the year. But remember, if you don't already, make sure to follow us on social media. That is Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. We have so much great content there for you, as well as highlights and post-game interviews, everything you need to know to keep you in the know with high school athletics around the state. And of course, sign up for our newsletter as well. That's varsityvibearkansas.com. You'll get that newsletter twice a week in your inbox on Tuesdays and Fridays. And you definitely don't want to miss all of that as well. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Thank you to Kevin for joining us on this show. And remember, go back and listen to some of the great conversations I've had with coaches and players around the state if you've missed any of those over the last couple of weeks. And excited to bring you more conversations here as softball, baseball, and soccer season really, truly gets underway. I'll see you next time.